in case you are feeling lost right now and indecisive about your career, then I believe that you are not the only one. I bet that most people have felt lost at least once in their career, but they just haven't been talking about it openly. If you've been feeling lost now for quite long, then it's time to do something about it. So let's start by talking about 5 things why you are possibly feeling lost. And it is likely to be different for everyone. So at the end of the video, please let me know what it is for you specifically. Why is it that you are feeling lost in your career or even in life in general? And once you find out exactly why you are feeling lost, then you'll be able to apply a suitable remedy for it. Number 1 is that you cannot see the big picture. You are so stuck in your daily routine, in your normal way of thinking, that you can't see outside of the box and you don't see the bigger perspective. So let's look at this example. Let's just say that for some reason you've landed in a jungle on an island. You're in the middle of the jungle and you want to get out of there. And your idea is to perhaps go to the mountains. But the problem is that you have no map and you have no GPS. So you don't really know what your coordinates are. You don't know where you are. And if it were just a straight path toward the mountain, then of course you could just walk straight toward it. But in reality, there would be roadblocks. There would be perhaps a river that you can't cross and you need to make some turns. So the road is not as straightforward. You keep on taking the wrong path, and instead of getting closer to the mountain, somehow you end up going deeper into the jungle, the exact opposite of what you want to do. Now let's apply this to your career. Let's just say that now you are working in banking or in the financial industry, but your actual goal now is that you want to work in the film industry. You want to change careers. But the problem is, because you're so used to the world of finance and banking, you have no idea about the film industry, and you don't have a map or GPS either. And if you want to make such an extreme career change, but you don't have a roadmap at all and you don't have a GPS at all, then it can be very hard to get there. You might get there eventually, but it can take you much longer than if you had a GPS or a roadmap. And in this sense, what your roadmap would be is a clear idea, or at least a rough idea, which is better than nothing, of how you can get from finance into the film industry. What are your different options? You can even start off with the typical route. What is the typical route that people take so they can get into the film industry? So how do you get to this roadmap? Nowadays, it's actually pretty easy. You just go online and you research the careers of people. That way you can figure out how they started, what they did to get their foot into that particular industry. And it won't mean that you'll end up taking the same path as other people did, but at least by studying their careers, you can identify some important landmarks. You can identify, for example, this is the kind of course that usually people would take, or this is the kind of experience that people would get before getting into this job, and so on. So having a roadmap is extremely important. It's better to have a very rough one than none at all, because if you're making a big career change without a roadmap, what is likely to happen is that you'll be going in circles and wasting a lot of time. The other danger of not having a roadmap is also that you will have no idea what your status is, how far you've come, and what the indicators are that you are progressing in the right direction. And because you don't know if you're on the right track or not, if you're getting closer to your goal or not, you never experience a sense of reward that propels you forward. And in the end, that leaves you demotivated. By the way, in case this situation is something that you feel you are experiencing at the moment, then please let me know by hitting the like button. The second reason why you might be lost in your career is because you have too many conflicting ideas or conflicting goals. Let's go back to the example of being lost in a jungle on an island. Let's say that now you do have a GPS or you have a map. But the problem is that you keep changing the input. So now you input mountain into the GPS because you've decided that your goal is to go to the mountain. And the GPS does what it's supposed to do. It shows you the best and fastest way to get to the mountain. But then after 3 hours, you're thinking, perhaps I shouldn't go to the mountain, but to the beach instead, because you think that rescue might be awaiting you there. In case you watched the series Lost, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyways, you input into the GPS beach because that is your new destination, and the GPS again does what it's supposed to be doing, and it shows you the best way to get to the beach. But just as you are about to arrive at the beach, let's say just half an hour before, you change your mind again. You think perhaps it's not such a bad idea to stay on this island instead. Maybe I'll just go back to the mountain. Maybe I'll set up camp there. So you change the input again to become mountain. So in this case, it's not the maps or the GPS's fault. The problem is just that you have too many conflicting goals. You're going back and forth and never settling on what you want to do. You are pulled in too many directions and end up going nowhere. Now let's apply this to your career. Let's say again you are working in finance, in banking, but one day you've decided that you want to work in film and you want to do something in special effects in film. So you enter into your GPS special effects and you start reading about it, watching YouTube videos about it, and you're contemplating to take a course related to special effects. But then after about 6 months or so, you started to get scared about the idea, and then you've decided that perhaps you might just stay in banking. Maybe you can just switch departments. So you're thinking about going into the HR department in finance. So now you're telling yourself, you're inputting into your brain, the new destination is HR in banking. And again, you're doing the information gathering process, talking to people, researching things, maybe even talking to the HR department in your company. But then again, you arrive at a point where you think, I only live once. Why am I doing this? I should be in film instead. I really want to do special effects. So you change course again and you change the input again. You get what I mean. So basically you're being pulled back and forth all the time because you cannot make up your mind. So in this case, you are kind of behaving opportunistically, meaning that you are deciding in the spur of the moment depending on what opportunities are right in front of you and how you are feeling at that moment, instead of making decisions based on your long-term goal and vision. Another reason why you might be indecisive is also because your goal is firstly not specifically enough defined, and number two, because your reason that you're giving yourself is just not compelling enough. So in this example, you don't really know, why do you have to work in HR? Why suddenly HR? Or why do you want to go into film and do special effects? Why do you really have to do that and not something else? So if you want to be more decisive and stay on track, you have to come up with a clear vision and compelling reasons why you are doing something, because in the short run things will become difficult and things might get frustrating on the way, but in the long term you will be happy that you've pursued that one thing that is important to you. Because this is the thing, things that are important to you and meaningful to you usually take a long time to develop, and oftentimes you only reap the rewards and benefits after a year, several years, or even longer. So in the short time there can actually be a lot of frustration and hardship in the process of pursuing your dream. But if you make the decision based on your feeling, how you are feeling in that moment, and making decisions in the spur of the moment, then you will end up making the wrong decision. By the way, I have a question for you. Is your career something that is really important to you? And are you also pursuing a career not just because of the money, but because you want to have a more fulfilling and meaningful life? If that is the case, then you might want to consider to subscribe. I make weekly videos, and if you want to make sure that you get informed about those, then also don't forget to hit the notification bell, because only if you do will YouTube notify you once I upload my new video. Now let's get to the third reason why you might feel lost in your career, and that is that there is no input into the GPS at all. So if we go back to the example of being lost in the jungle, you have a GPS or you have this map, but you haven't decided on anything. You haven't even made a decision at all. So you know that you have different options. You could go to the mountain or to the beach, or you could go further into the jungle, or maybe look for a waterfall or whatever, but it's just in your head and you are overthinking it and you are not doing anything. You keep weighing off the pluses and minuses, the advantages, the benefits and the risks and everything, but you just can't make up your mind. There are so many things to consider and you end up freezing. You end up being frozen to the spot and end up in analysis paralysis. And this kind of situation is oftentimes followed by immense fear, because you are not trying and not making any move move at all. Everything is in your head and you start imagining the worst things possible. So you're thinking, for example, actually I want to go to the mountain, but what if on the way up the mountain I fall off the cliff, or while I'm climbing up the mountain I just run out of oxygen, I faint or I die or whatever. Or you're thinking, I might go to the beach, but what happens if I go to the beach, I swim and then I drown? And there might also be jellyfish and sharks. You remember Jaws. So what happens in the end is that you just stay put in the jungle at the exact spot and grow old there. Now let's go back to the career example. So let's say that you want to become a more successful banker and you've done your research. You research various ways of how you can become more competitive and perhaps get a promotion. You could take a Six Sigma training, or you could take this course A, B, or C, and so on. On the other hand, you also researched about how you can possibly become a film director. You read hundreds of blogs and watched thousands of YouTube videos, but you're just too afraid of making a move. You're just frozen to your spot. You're thinking of all the consequences. If I try to become a film director, maybe my family would ridicule me, or if I try to do this, if I took this course, maybe I wouldn't like it, and so on. So you have so many buts, what ifs, that in the end you don't do anything at all. And what you end up with instead is just a big information overload and information overwhelm, which can happen so easily nowadays because you are constantly fed with so much information, so much input every day. But the problem is that if you're not able to take action on all this information that you got, but instead you're just thinking and not willing to experiment and try out things, then in the end you are not going to make any progress. But what if I fail? Yes, failure is a risk, but it is a risk that is oftentimes worth taking in life, especially if that risk is not that big and you are also aware that you're taking that risk and are able to bear the consequences. So because you've made no decision, but you have all these different thoughts swirling in your head, you end up continue to feel lost. By the way, apart from just feeling lost, do you also feel that you are extremely indecisive about your career? Please do share with me in the comments. Please let me know why you are indecisive, what you are indecisive about, or in general why you are feeling lost in your career. The fourth reason why you might be lost in your career is because your GPS is broken, or the map that you have is incorrect. So you do have a GPS or a map and you do have a goal and you input it correctly into the system, but the GPS is just not working. It is malfunctioning. So in the jungle example, you input mountain and the GPS calculates the best route for you to get to the mountain and you simply follow it. You follow it for an hour or two, but after a while you notice that I'm actually not getting closer to the mountain. Actually, I feel like I'm getting further away from it. But you don't take the time to simply pause, take a look at the GPS and see what's wrong about it. Perhaps something is wrong with the settings. Instead, you're just telling yourself, no, the GPS must be right. If I just keep following it, then eventually I'll get there. So you blindly follow the GPS, but in the end, you're going deeper and deeper into the jungle. And after 1 year of walking around in circles, you're still not pausing. You're not asking anyone for help, but you keep on going. And that is another way to grow old in the jungle and not get anywhere. So in relation to your career, you might have the goal that you want to become a film director, and you read thousands of blogs and watched so many YouTube videos about it, and you also experimented by yourself. But you feel that you are not really getting closer to your goal. You are not really making much progress. But instead of learning from other people or asking them how they did certain things, you just persist on following your own roadmap. You just believe so firmly that yes, this is the right way to do it. I am 100% sure, and if I just continue doing this, then I'll get there. And in some cases, this can actually work, but I believe this is a very small minority because in most cases, people learn from other people's experience and learn a lot by talking to other people. But let's just say that you're the type of person who doesn't really like talking to people and asking people. In that case, you're kind of relying on yourself and the information that you get online. And in this case, it is really important that you keep asking yourself the right questions. To get to your goal, there is not only one way, there are many paths that lead to it, but you need to try out different paths and experiment. So you try this method for a while, but you realize that you're not making progress. Then you need to stop and review what you're doing. Why am I not making progress? Is something maybe wrong with the way I do it? And then try and apply a different method. Try something else and see if that works. The point here is that sometimes you need to question your roadmap. You need to question your GPS or the tools that you are working with. The fifth reason why you might feel lost in your career is because you've simply run out of steam. So you have the GPS or you have the map, you also have a goal, a clearly defined goal, and you input it into the system, and the GPS also works wonderfully. But the only problem is that you've run out of steam. You're just so tired and exhausted. You're in this jungle and you haven't slept in days. You haven't drank any water in 2 or 3 days, and you've been chased by wild animals. So you're out of energy, and all that you can do now is sit down and do nothing. And in this situation, you won't get anywhere until you recover from that situation, until you get in good health again, and until you've rested for a bit. Only then can you restart your journey again. So back to your career again. You want to make this big career change. For example, become that film director, and now you're working in finance, and you know exactly how to get there, what it takes, what you have to do, and you've talked to so many people about the best ways to get into the film industry. But now you've been working in finance for a while, you've been working very hard, and you're totally burned out. You're so tired, you feel stressed, frustrated, and depressed. And on the weekends or after work, you simply have no energy at all to do anything at all to work towards your dream. If you're faced with this kind of situation, first you have to get yourself back into a healthy state again, because only then can you make good decisions for yourself and progress towards your goal. So let me know why you are feeling lost. Which of these 5 reasons I talked about just now can you relate to the most? And if I see in the comments that a lot of people are struggling with more or less the same things, then I might be making a separate video on that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was useful, and I'll see you again soon.